Greetings, people across the grand and mighty spectrums of time and the multiverse. This is sort of a review of the a review of the film Conspiracy about the Wannsee conference in Germany, where they decided upon the final solution, and it's also sort of a kind of personal take on that with regards to the politics of the alt-right and indeed the rise of the far right and the alt-right across Europe and America. Yeah, this is, I'm not actually sure whether this is going to be a video that's going to be able to be monetized, because this is not going to be one of those videos that the alt-right ignore. It's not going to be one of those videos that just sails underneath people's perspectives and nobody cares about. Because I fair warning, trigger warning, I may in fact use language that is a little strong, and I may in fact raise my voice a little and exhibit a tone and attitude to which some people may find themselves offended. This is because I am a left-wing person, or at least I aspire to be a left-wing person. I consider that the left-wing principles from each according to their ability to each according to their need to be a very sound principle. And I am someone who genuinely thinks that capitalism needs a fuck of a ton more regulation in order to work. I'm not necessarily sure it's practical at this stage to apply regulation upon it, because globalism means that if you do happen to apply regulation to it, then hey, they can just move somewhere else. But nonetheless, you know, I aspire to that. I am someone who is, you know, cis. That means that, you know, my gender and my sexual characteristics are of the same heteronormative type, but at the same time I am someone with a condition called Kalman syndrome, which means that therefore certain secondary sexual characteristics are not necessarily of the heteronormative indication, and that therefore I require testosterone injections, and if that were not subsidized by the National Health Service, then I would be a little bit fucked. And to those who do not understand this, basically it means I have tits. I'm a man with tits. So want to sort of lay out my perspective, and yes, I am. I have got mild Asperger's syndrome. I just want to make clear that there is an aspiration in that, as in to aspire, aspiration. It's not Asperger's, it's Asperger's. It's Asperger's, not Asperger's. But anyway, I am, because I have mild Asperger's syndrome, I am technically on the autistic spectrum, and just to kind of put that out there, let's begin, shall we? Wannsee conference to decide the final solution. I knew what this was about. from an episode of Dissecting Worlds, funnily enough. They were discussing alternate history possibilities, and the Valisay Conference was one of those proposed. Because obviously the idea is that if you didn't waste all that time and energy on the final solution, then maybe the Germans could have succeeded in other areas. Well, that's kind of a good thing they didn't, because, you know, horrible shit. But this film kind of prompted me to talk about this, because the far right is on the rise at the moment, which is scary. I mean, we all, I think as a kid, you're pretty much, you know, brought up, at least in England, being taught about, you know, the Nazis. Like, that's, at least when I was growing up, you know, it was obligatory, you know, the sort of, the three things you come away from school, everybody is like, you know, the seasons, you know, how to tell the time, and the Nazis were fucking bad, you know. Like those are the things that you generally come away with from school. Like, everybody should fucking know that Nazis are fucking bad. Which is incidentally why you can come away with some, you know, idiot saying, I know, I will make it, I will do a Nazi swastika, because, you know, the swastika is the Nazis, and the Nazis are the international evil people. So we just make, so whenever you want to sort of do an indication of, oh, this is an evil thing, then you just do a Nazi swastika. Or at least, you know, that's maybe the logic you do if you're a fucking idiotic kid. But in recent times, we have seen people take to office who are genuinely scary. We have seen people take to office who have hired people whose public relations reputation is very much a deliberately provocative one, but whose actual political inclinations are distinctly of the far right, of the nationalistic, of the white nationalist, of the racist. You know, the fact that a man who was considered too racist to be a judge is being considered to be by Donald Trump to be on his to be associated with his new cabinet in America. We are at a time when racism and racist beatings are on the rise, where people don't feel safe to go out on the street, where people are kind of going back in the fucking closet because it's not safe out there anymore. We are at a time where the vulnerable are being terrorized by white nationalists. And politically, there are a lot of complicated factors. There is, you know, the fact that essentially race baiting is a very easy way to steer people who are angry and disadvantaged to vote against their self-interests, right? When someone is angry, you can motivate them to do things that would harm themselves, because they're not thinking straight. And that's one aspect of the situation. There is also the other aspect of the situation, that these are genuinely demographics, some of them who have been shafted by various different governments, and they see a chance to vote against the establishment, so they're going to take it, even if the reason the establishment is backing it is because this is fucking common sense. And there are also issues of genuinely occasions, which, thanks to the new media, we know about, where some people of these minorities that are being targeted are committing acts. I mean, let's face it. When I am going to be making comparisons between, the Vanessay conference being discussed in the film Conspiracy and modern day politics, the comparison is between the Jews of the 1940s and Muslims of the 21st century. And yet at the same time, I know that when I look at, Saudi Arabia, for example, there are people, there are countries that are supposedly Islamic, that are committing war crimes, that are committing crimes against humanity, that are violating rights, that are committing atrocities. And so that doesn't help matters. Like, there are genuinely a whole load of mix of stuff going on with regards to the realpolitik of certain political situations. I'm not talking about why someone may have voted Trump, or someone may have voted third party, or why someone might have voted for Brexit. I am talking about white nationalists. I am talking about white supremacists. I am talking about segregationists, racists, the alt-right. I am, in short, talking about the cunts. So if you're gonna comment below and say, but I'm not a cunt, then okay, you're not a cunt. You don't need to leave a comment, because you're not a cunt. If you wanna say the shoe fits and complain that the shoe seems to fit, then that's your problem. That's not mine. If you don't think the shoe fits, then I'm not talking to you. If you're not a cunt, you're not a cunt. And instantly, just so we're clear, when I use the term cunt, I'm just using it as a pejorative statement. I could just as easily be saying shitweasel, penis hog, or indeed gigantic dildo, whatever, vomit fetus, we can go with whatever, but I will be using the term cunt to be the pejorative derogatory indicator here. I understand that in cases of Donald Trump and in Brexit and in other situations that the geopolitics is complicated. I also understand, and I would like you to understand, that there is a minority of people who are the alt-right, who are white supremacists, and are racists, cunts. And these people see the massive, overwhelming, well, okay, actually it's not overwhelming in the case of Trump, because actually, technically, Hillary won the popular vote, which is an interesting definition of democracy, right, America? Whereby the candidate with the most votes doesn't win. But thanks to the Electoral College, Trump's now president, and because Trump is president and America is supposedly democracy, a bunch of stupid people now think that the entirety of America thinks as they do. And equally in Britain, right, the vote to leave the European Union won. It did win by 4% of those who actually voted. As it and as in it, they won by 42%, but they won by 52% of the vote, and the Remain campaign got 48%. So they won by 4% of those who voted. 4% of those who voted is the amount that they did. And I know I'm repeating myself here, but the point I am trying to make is that that's not an overwhelming victory or statement that everybody agrees that leave is the correct outcome. And in the case of Donald Trump, like there isn't even a slim majority in favor of Donald Trump because he actually lost the popular vote. The point I'm trying to make here is that in these cases, even if a Trump victory or a Brexit victory were overwhelmingly in favour of Trump or overwhelmingly in favour of Brexit, then because of the complicated nature of geopolitics, then even so, that being the case, the majority of people would not have done so thinking that being cuntish was the way to go, thinking that being a member of the alt-right, being a white supremacist, being racist was a good idea. Even if they did win by a significant majority, the vast majority of people who would have voted for these instances would not have been the alt-right, would not have been white supremacists, would not have been white nationalists, would not have been cunts. And it wasn't even that. What you had in America was a victory despite being the loser of the Democratic vote. And in Britain, you had a very, very, very slim victory in favour of leave. And because of these very slim wins, or indeed wins that weren't really wins, but by virtue of a fucked up political system were effectively wins, the cunts, the alt-rights, they perceived that in large part the majority of the country agrees with how they think, or at least they now think that half the population thinks as they do, which is not the case, because in actuality, in the case of Brexit and in the case of Donald Trump, it's not how many, the victory of winning is not the percentage of the total population, it is the percentage of those who actually fucking voted. And the percentage of people who did not vote is not an insignificant factor in either case. And yes, did not vote does not necessarily mean that these people automatically agree with the establishment perspective, does not automatically mean that they agree with the left-wing, non-racist perspective. What it does mean, however, is that it's not simple. It's not clear-cut. It is not a straight-out Brexit won, therefore everybody thinks the same way as the alt-right. It's not as simple as Donald Trump won, therefore everybody thinks that Donald Trump was a good idea and that they all agree with the alt-right. I realise that I have gone over myself a few times, but I feel like it is important to outline precisely my starting point so that there is clarity. The issue is that a small proportion of people feel empowered by the actions of a minority of the population, and these small numbers of people who are cunts are advocating policies that I believe would be devastating. And I am going to, in this video, outline why I think these policies would be devastating, and why I am against these policies, and why I would be against anyone who is in favour of these policies. I am going to outline in this why I think the alt-rights and the white supremacists and the white nationalists are cunts. As I say, the derogatory pejorative. I was on Twitter, and I've actually started to quite like Twitter. Mainly, it has to be said, because I have the TweetDeck app, which means that I don't have to open my web browser and all 50 of my tabs that I always have open, because I have a bit of a problem when it comes to saving things to look at for later. So I like to have TweetDeck for when I'm, when I want to sort of make a comment or whatever during the middle of watching, say, conspiracy or whatever, if I am going to be playing a video game later. Because generally what I like to do is I like to restart my computer, or just start it up from fresh, and just play a video game without loading up the 50 tabs, because loading up the 50 tabs can lag out the computer, and even if you then immediately close Opera, at least my worry is that that will cause some kind of load on the computer that I would rather not be there, and so I'd rather just do a fresh startup without having that open if I'm going to be playing a video game. And so I actually quite like Twitter, because I can use the TweetDeck app to have the sort of social network interaction without loading up my 50 tabs, and therefore, making the computer run slow. Christ, I'm being incredibly fucking precise about this. And as I was on Twitter, I happened to see somebody, I follow quite a few people, happened to see somebody saying, hey, sooner or later the SJWs and the alt-right are going to be just as bad as one another. And I was just like, no. On one side wants peace and respect and equality for persecuted minorities, and the other side wants genocide, because they're cunts. I mean, obviously, you can see the tweets if you go through my timeline. Be warned, there will be a lot of auto-shared from Facebook stuff and a lot of auto-shared from YouTube, because, to be honest, the way my Twitter survives by and large is by being the auto-share place. But people seem to like it. But I made this comment, and then somebody said, but why does white supremacy, why does wanting to live with only people who are who are like your own kind lead to genocide? And this film, Conspiracy, the Wednesday Conference, outlines that pretty much in its opening message, and I need to go and get more squash. Yeah, this is going to be a long one. Now, I am about to do a very dangerous thing. I'm about to engage these cunts in debate. Or at least I am going to attempt to outline my perspective in a manner that I hope might be able to win some people round in a debate. I have outlined before that, as far as I am concerned, there is little point actually getting into debates, because as far as I am concerned, by and large, nobody gets into a debate to change their mind. Everybody gets into a debate because they're angry about what the other person is thinking, and they want the other person to change their mind. And so as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to waste time in that regard. I don't want to enter into scenarios where two people are just going to shout at each other and nothing is actually going to get done. So I am fully aware that by attempting to engage in some sort of debate, even a one-sided one, that there will be a perception of weakness, that there will be a perception that my opinion and perspective can be argued against. And I appreciate that it is, of course, the right of any commenter to put across their own perspective. That is fair. It might not be a perspective I agree with, it might be a perspective that I quite violently disagree with, but they have that right and they are free to put across their own perspective. But the fact that they may put across their perspective in a manner that they believe counters the arguments I outline, or that they believe means they have won the debate, will not change my perspective. And indeed, I have no intention of reading the comments. Sorry, covering myself, but there we are. The reason that I do so is because I am about to challenge the statement outlined in that tweet, namely that where's the harm in wanting to just live among your own kind? Okay. Well, first off, who's your own kind? How are you defining your own kind? Where's the legality of that? Who is your own kind? Who is an English person? Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm English. I'm a white English guy. You know, my parents were born in England. I was born in England. My grandparents were born in England. You know, I can probably chase it back farther than that, but I don't care to, because as far as I'm concerned, I was born in England. My parents were born in England. My grandparents were born in England. I don't need to know any more than that. As far as I'm concerned, that's enough to me. I'm English. Right? Indeed, as far as I'm concerned, if you were fucking born in England and you were raised in England, you're English. You know. End of. But I know that there are people who would say that I'm not English because Jahans doesn't sound English. Isn't that an Indian name? So that's the first issue. How do you define who is your own kind? The sort of legality of definition. We must be clear about our definitions, as why I suppose I have gone to such lengths to outline and define what I mean by a cunt in this context. The pejorative, derogatory. And then there is the issue of how exactly you plan to carry it out. Because after all, I mean, that's what the Nanostate conference is about. Was about. Addressing the question of how the fuck you get rid of so many goddamn Jews. At least if you're a Nazi. One perspective, one attempted solution was to found Israel. Was to give the Jewish peoples a homeland and say, here, please go, leave. Sort of, I suppose, the most peaceful of the cunt perspectives, the most peaceful of the alt-right, white supremacist, white nationalist perspectives, which is the how do you deal with a demographic that you don't like living next to? Well, you can give them their own land to do with as they wish. It's like I saw that some people, there are petitions that crop up occasionally of people being like, yes, we should give the Scots independence because we want them to fuck off. That's sort of, I suppose, the least shitty, the least cunty of the cunty ways to approach this particular article of consideration, if you happen to consider it a problem. But supposing you do that, what then? Okay, so suppose you found New Israel, or in the case of Muslims, you found New Mecca. You buy an island somewhere and you say, we're going to put you there, right? You've done the calculations. You know it's going to be large enough. Let's assume this. Maybe fuck it. You realize there's not enough space on the Earth, so what you do is you're going to build a space colony. Whatever. You find the way to make sure that all the people that you want to purge for not being pure enough, as you have somehow found a way to outline, you've cleared that out, and you know how you're going to go about purging those who don't fit your definition of purity, and you're going to find a way for them to live happily somewhere. Okay, good. You've got your new Mecca, your new Jerusalem, right? You think it's going to be easy to get people to move? You think that tearing up millions of people from their homelands is going to go without the single slightest bit of coercion, of struggle, that nobody is going to be the least bit upset, and all because a minority of people, as we have just outlined, want these others to go? No, the people are going to be upset. They're going to fight against it. They're going to fight in the law courts. They're going to fight in the streets. There's going to be rioting. There's going to be revolts, rebellion, you know. There's going to be international sanctions from other parts of the world that don't agree with your perspective, that haven't had your perspective take over government. And even if, as some of us might be fearing at the moment, the alt-right does manage to take over the majority of governments in Europe and America, at least the Western civilized world, then there's still a whole lot of people within those countries who are going to resist and who are going to have the power to resist. So how are you going to go about this in a peaceful manner? Okay, because this is something that I have seen said more than once, is people saying, well, you know, I'm an alt-right person, but I'm not a Nazi, I'm not genocidal. All right, so let's address the question of, okay, how can you be an alt-right person and want to be separated from these races or demographics that you don't consider to be sufficiently pure by your definition? Let's suppose, under the best or least cunty scenario, you have a solution whereby these people will be able to live out happily and friendly, and nobody's going to get upset because they're all going to be okay, right? That's still going to make a lot of people very angry and very upset, and then they're going to fight back. And how are you going to achieve this in such a way as they go to these places where they will live happily without a problem, without creating a problem in the process of encouraging them to move? Okay, because it is one thing to deport people who are there illegally, but if you are someone who, say, for example, doesn't like the fact that Muslims are in Britain, then I got fucking news for you, dude. A whole ton of people, a whole ton of Muslims are in Britain fucking legally, and they've been living here for decades, and they've had family living here for centuries, right? There are Muslim families in Great Britain that have been living and serving in Great Britain and England for hundreds of years, for almost as long as there has been an England, and you're gonna tell me that these people who, because by your definition they aren't as pure as you would like, that they're going to be deported to this, you know, new utopia that you've set up, so that they can live out happily, you know, so that you can avoid harming or causing any kind of stuff, that they're going to do so, and nobody's going to mind that you are deporting them, right? They aren't illegal immigrants. They're legal immigrants. In many cases, they're not even immigrants. They are British people. They are people who have been part of our culture for hundreds of years. And even under the absolute best case scenario, least cunty scenario, these people are not just going to go and leave everything that is of their lives to go and move to somewhere new, even if it is some grand fucking utopia that you've somehow managed to pull out of your arse. So, you're going to have to use force. Which means that you are now using force to depose people from their homes, from their families, from their friends, from everything that they have known. It may be that you are quite genuinely going to move them to somewhere where they will have a much, much better quality of life, where everything will be brilliant. That may genuinely be the case. It probably won't be, but that may genuinely be the case. That won't change the fact that you will be committing crimes, you will be committing acts of force and aggression in order to bring about this end. And people are going to fight back, which means that at the very best, accidents are going to happen whereby people, because they don't like being deported apart from anything else, are going to create international incidents that make your organization look bad, that implicate others, that harm others. Now, you can say, well, if the people we are deporting happen to harm others, well, it's hardly our fault, is it? Because they're harming others, not our people. No, but that is a natural fucking consequence of trying to uproot millions of people from their fucking homes. Right? And unless you're telling me that you're going to be somehow offering these people amazing fucking carrots to fucking move, then there is going to be a fight back against it. And there is going to be a crackdown against the fight back. And during that crackdown, lives will be lost. Lives that need not have been lost had your organization not decided that these people who you have decided are not pure enough need to be moved. And that's the fucking best case scenario. But let's now sort of criticize that best case scenario, because you're not going to get into space, and you're not going to find a country actually where you could just dump millions of people and say, go live, right? That does not happen. Even if you decided to take a trick from fucking Saudi Arabia and fucking build a new goddamn continent in the fucking ocean. It's gonna build a new island in the ocean. It's gonna have to be a fucking big island, because millions of people will have to be deported to this island. And there's only so much space in the sea, and we're already dealing with issues of rising sea levels. How the fuck do you think that situation is going to be when you decide to plonk another massive big island in the middle of the ocean? Right? Water level is going to have to rise everywhere fucking else. And there are already parts of the world where the water level is far too high as it is. And your solution to combat a problem that only you and a few other cunts believe is a problem will create this issue of a rise in sea level. And that's assuming that you can find a way to build a new fucking island, and that this new island will be totally fucking safe, and that this new island will be funded somehow. How will you fund it? Well, where are you going to pull the fucking money for this island out of your fucking ass? You're not going to. You're not fucking going to. You're just not going to. So, what do you do then? Do you do what Hitler originally tried to do about the Jewish problem, and try to found a new country for these people you don't consider by your definition to be pure, somewhere in another country with other people, and you're essentially going to leave them to sort out the issue because you don't care what happens to them. And so what if they end up in endless bloody civil war because you have decided to found their homeland on top of somebody else's homeland? That isn't a solution that would satisfy. That's the least terrible of the practical solutions. In fact, it is probably the most practical solution in that it is the only one that has actually, to this date, tried at all. And tried at all and succeeded to a certain extent and not being completely fucking horrible. Although the fact that with Donald Trump being elected, the current ruler of Israel has essentially announced that, as far as he's concerned, nothing will be able to stop the Israel people from essentially committing cultural and geopolitical genocide against the Palestinians. Now that Mr. Bigot is in charge in America. So, it's a little bit of fucking irony. The Jews being proud to have a Nazi because this time the Nazi is persecuting their enemies instead of persecuting them. No, you're not going to find an island. You're not going to take somebody else's island, and you're certainly not gonna fucking get some space station. So what you're gonna do? You're gonna try to encourage all these people to move to other countries. Well, we've already seen how well it goes when countries have to deal with refugees, haven't we? In fact, there was one line in the film Conspiracy about the Wannsee Conference that made me chuckle a little with how fucking horrible it is, where essentially these one of these Nazi generals or officials was addressing the need to sort out what he regarded as the Jewish problem because of ghettos and infections and viruses that were forming in there to threaten the other peoples in that area, and one of the characters happened to quip, "Build the wall higher." Quite funny that. It's a film about Nazis deciding on genocide. And they comment that, well, just build the wall higher. Of course, what was Donald Trump's famous fucking election pledge? Gonna build a great brick wall. Criticizing me? Well, it just got 10 feet higher. You're not going to be able to offload those that you consider to be not pure by your definition to other countries, because they've got their own problems, and they aren't going to want to take your people because they've got their own bigots. Actually, they've got their own bigots that happen to vote, and so they can't afford to upset their bigots too much by taking in too many people. Certainly they can't afford to take in millions of people. I mean, there are some countries that, as in response to the refugee crisis, have actually taken in about a quarter of their own native population worth of refugees. Meanwhile, some countries have barely taken in a tenth, if that. So no, you're not going to be able to offload those you don't consider pure to other countries, and you're not going to be able to give them their own island, and you're not going to be able to give them their own space colony. So where do you put those that you don't consider pure? And this is what the Vanity Conference in 1945 the Vanity Conference was about. The film Conspiracy was about. And in the film Conspiracy, they address it within the first 5 fucking minutes, more or less. And I have now taken an hour to get to the point of fucking addressing it. But I felt it was important to outline every fucking step of the way. To outline, well, how about this line of thought? Here's why that's bullshit. How about that line of thought? Well, that's bullshit. How about that line of thought? That's why that's bullshit. So now how we come to the part of the video which I have been dreading. Final question. Final route of consideration. why genocide is bad. Because sooner or later, if you are someone who believes in the alt-right, believes in white nationalism, believes in white supremacy, in being a cunt, sooner or later, your government, founded under alt-right, white nationalist, white supremacist, cunty considerations, it's going to realise what the Germans realised, what the Nazis realised, that it's impractical to send so many to live out peacefully elsewhere. And it's impractical to even do what the Nazis tried to do, which was to essentially treat those they considered impure like shit, but simply sterilize them and let them live, but let them be the last generation. Even that horrible possibility is going to be impractical to you. Because you see, Nazis have asked these questions before, and they've answered them. That if you are someone who wants to live in peace and isolation away from those that you would consider inferior and impure, that you are at some point going to naturally, inexorably be drawn to the conclusion that what you really want to do is to just kill them all, is to just wipe out every single last member of the people that by your definition are not considered pure, because they aren't going to want to move, because they aren't going to have somewhere to move to. Or even if they do, they aren't going to move fast enough. And now that I have outlined what the film has done in 5 minutes over the course of an hour, I am going to get into my perspective and my final counter of the debate. Genocide is, as far as I am concerned, the only action for which the death penalty is advisable. Is the only action for which murder is advisable. Is the only action for which dying is the moral fucking imperative. Because you see, genocide is a matter of deaths that make advocating it numerically, if you advocate genocide, then by sheer numbers, it is mathematically more moral for you to die if it means stopping the genocide. Because when you are talking about the deaths of thousands, of millions, of billions of human lives, then it absolutely is moral to end yours to save theirs. If you are talking about advocating the complete extermination of a people's, then it is absolutely fucking moral to ensure that you do not come into a position to make those fucking decisions. That you do not come into a position to enact such a policy that would cause so many to die. If you are someone who is advocating a policy of the alt-right, of white supremacy, of white nationalism, if you are someone who thinks that you can naively just live alone without anybody fucking bothering you, if you are someone who thinks that it is not a crime to advocate for the right for your particular fucking definition of demographic to continue through some form of fucking eugenics, then you, sir, are advocating genocide. And if you are advocating genocide, then I am going to say right here, right now, on record, that it is absolutely moral to fucking end you to save the majority of people. Genocide is the one crime for which murder is absolutely fucking fine to deal with. If you are someone who is going to commit genocide, if you are someone who is advocating genocide, then as far as I am concerned, it is moral to fucking end you before you can commit genocide. Genocide is evil. And I do not use that word lightly. I do not use that word lightly. I am not a Christian. I am not Jewish. I am not Islamic. I am not a pagan. I am an anti-theist. Not only do I not believe in God, I don't like God. I believe in reason and rationality, and what I believe is that it is better to save the majority of people. And if saving the majority of people means stopping those who would cause harm to the majority of people, then I say that it is far, far better to stop the minority who would harm the majority. I say that it is far, far better to stop the genociders at all costs. Of course, I'm just one man. I'm just one low energy cuck on the internet. One idiot with Asperger's syndrome, Kalman syndrome. I'm not going to harm anyone. But I guarantee you that the moment any kind of genocide starts being implemented, then I will be calling for the heads of those committing the genocide. And I will be putting to power every single aspect at my disposal. Because genocide is the most immoral thing. Genocide it transcends fucking morality. It is a level of fucking evil that renders actions to prevent it, even evil ones, to be preferable. I am one idiot in England. I'm not going to hurt anyone. But you would be a fucking fool if you think that you can advocate for white supremacy and white nationalism and the alt-right, and that you can advocate for genocide without there being consequences, violent consequences down the line against you. Because you may think that the majority of people now agree with you thanks to Brexit and Trump, but as I outlined in the beginning, the vast majority of people do not see a vote for Brexit or for Trump as a vote for genocide. They do not see it as a vote for the alt-right, for white supremacy, for white nationalism. They had their own complex personal reasons for voting for Brexit or for Trump, and even so, these are still the minority of people. The majority of people did not vote for Donald Trump, and the majority of people did not actually vote for Brexit. The majority of people were against it or did not vote. The majority of people voted for Hillary Clinton, or they did not vote. The majority of people did not back the racist point of view, and even those that did back the racist perspective of those, only a very small minority are actually cunts. Only a very small minority are actually members of the alt-right, are actually white supremacists and white nationalists. And it is that small minority who are advocating genocide. And it is that small minority that will quickly realize just how fucking small a minority they are the moment that they decide to implement any kind of policy which in any fucking way resembles genocide. Because I guarantee you that genocide is the one fucking issue which will unite fucking everyone against the alt-right and the white supremacists and the white nationalists. Now, as I have outlined in this video, as far as I am concerned, if you are a member of the alt-right, if you are a member of the white supremacists, if you are a white nationalist, then what you are doing is advocating for genocide, if only by advocating for a system that would inevitably at some point come to the conclusion that genocide was the most practical way to bring about the goal of white supremacy, of white nationalism. At some point, the alt-right, white nationalists, white supremacists would, I believe, end up carrying out genocide, and that therefore fighting against them is the most moral of imperatives, because genocide is the most immoral and most evil of acts, and that, as far as I'm concerned, even killing is far, far preferable to allowing acts of genocide to go ahead. I have been Alexander Gordon Johansson, and I need to fucking go and play some goddamn Civ 5. Thank you to all my Patreons at patreon.com for helping to make videos like this possible. If you wish to leave a like or dislike to rate the video for my analytics, that would be much appreciated. Comments are always welcome, though be aware that they will be moderated before being published, so please be civil. If you liked this video, please consider adding it to your favourites, sharing it to your friends, or subscribing. If you wish to help me out, or my channels, please consider whitelisting my videos in your adblock software, subscribing for monthly donations through Patreon, or giving a small one-off donation. Alternatively, I have a Steam wishlist for games I would consider Let's Playing or streaming, so if you would like to see me broken before the Dark Souls altar, or just happen to have gotten a duplicate of a game in a humble bundle, then you know what to do. I also have an official Facebook fan page, Twitter account, Tumblr, Reddit and blog, so you can stay up to date with all of my videos, blog articles and the things I care about. Links are in the video description. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I think that all that now needs to be said is ban all guns, institute universal basic income now, and ensure government is elected by proportional representation. Oh, and also, fuck the racists and fuck the alt-right. It is a reward for Patreons that who donate $5 or more, that they get thanks for donating $5 or more to my Patreon, and I haven't been doing that because I'm sort of shit at things, and so I am going to be thanking all the people who have donated $5 or more, basically for all time so far, and this is going to be re-recorded every time someone else donates $5 more in future. So anyway, without further ado, here we go. Thank you to Michael Hamilton Fletcher, who donated on September the 13th, 2015. And thank you to Marcus Anthony Infante, who pledged $5 on September the 3rd, 2016, and thank you to Henry Wotton, who pledged $5 on September the 8th, 2016. Thank you to both of you, lovely, to all three of you, lovely people, and I will indeed be remembering to keep actually rewarding my Patreons for, you know, donating money to keep me alive, because that's nice, and because I have seen people complaining that, well, you know, this link to send you care packages from Amazon, all of the things on the wish list are really expensive. Yeah, well, you know, you can just give me money as well. That would be appreciated. So Patreons, thank you. You are lovely, wonderful. Apologies that you watch my videos, because I'm a sort of grotesque flesh golem of idiocy. Why? But anyway, thank you. Also, thanks to Martin Heavey, Cestrian vlogger, for pledging $5 a month on Patreon.